In 1963, a union painter in Providence, Rhode Island, took a job painting a three-decker on the east side. He spent 4 days on that house before he opened a single can of paint. 4 days of washing, scraping, sanding, and priming, and not one drop of color on it. The owner stood in the yard on the 3rd day and accused him of stealing. On the 5th day, he started painting, and he was done in 2. That paint was still sound 34 years later. The crew that finally repainted it did the whole house in 2 days flat. They were back inside of 3 years. One trick from those 4 days, the one that cut a line straighter than tape with nothing but a brush, is number 9 on this list. And what he actually did with those 4 days, the plainest thing in the entire trade, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1963, there was a father like him in half the garages in America, and the man who taught him was his own father before that. He mixed his own paint out of white lead paste, linseed oil, and turpentine on the job in a bucket with his own 2 hands. He knew what paint was made of because he made it. We traded that away for a roller and a weekend. We were handed paint easier than anything he ever mixed, and no idea what to do with it. So we paint over dirt. It peels in 2 years, and we decide we are not good at painting. That knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It works better than ever now. It died because the only part of a paint job you can see is the part that takes the least skill. Number 17 is the reason there is a stripe down your living room wall you cannot explain, and the fix costs nothing and takes 5 minutes. Number 9 is how a painter cuts a razor line in half the time with no tape at all, and it is the skill that separates his hand from yours. And number 1 is what that man did for 4 days before he opened a can. It is free. It is the whole trade, and it is the only reason his paint outlived the man who hired him. These 20 tricks were never about paint. They were the mark of a man who did it once, right, and never again. Not a weekend, a skill. Every trick on this list, that Providence painter had in his own 2 hands. If that kind of work is worth remembering, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last one is the one that matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost painting tricks every father knew in the 1960s, the ones contractors pray you never learn. Number 20, punching the rim of the can. You wipe the brush on the lip, the groove fills, and hammering the lid back on sprays the room and ruins the seal. Take a nail and punch 4 or 5 holes through the bottom of that groove, all the way around. Everything you wipe off drains back into the can, and the lid seats airtight. Punch the holes before you start, not after the groove is already full. For the man with 1 can of paint and no money to buy a second, an airtight lid meant the leftovers were still good next year for the touch-up. Painters have done this since paint came in a can with a groove, and no one at the store will ever mention it. Not a can that ruins itself. A groove you drain. Number 19, working out of a cut bucket. You carry the whole gallon up the ladder, and 1 bump puts it on the floor. No painter works from the can. You pour an inch or 2 into a small bucket, and that is what you carry and dip from. The gallon stays sealed on the floor, clean of the grit your brush picks up. Pour only what you will use in 20 minutes, so the rest never skins over. For the man painting his own house after work, It was the difference between a ruined rug and a clean job. Every professional carries a cut bucket. Every homeowner drags the gallon around by the handle. Not a can you haul, a bucket you pour. Number 18, straining the paint. You open a can that sat in the basement 2 years, and the hard bits in it end up as lumps on your wall forever. Old paint skins over and the skin breaks up. You stretch a nylon stocking over your cut bucket and pour it through. Every bit of skin stays in the mesh, and what comes through is clean. Strain it, even if it looks fine. The bits you cannot see are the ones you feel later. For the family reusing a half can from the last job, it turned ruined paint back into good paint for free. Standard on every professional job and unknown in almost every house. Not paint gone bad. Paint you filter. Number 17, boxing the paint. You buy 3 gallons for a big room, the color shifts halfway across the wall, and there is a stripe you will see forever. Every can is tinted separately, and no two are exactly the same. So before you start, you pour all 3 gallons into one 5-gallon bucket and stir them together. Now, every drop in the room is one batch. Box every gallon you use on one continuous surface, even if the labels match. For the man painting his whole first floor one color, boxing was the difference between a paint job and a mistake he looked at for a decade. Painters have boxed paint for a century, and the store has never once mentioned it. Not a wall with a stripe. A batch you make one color. Number 16. Conditioning the brush. You take a bone-dry brush out of the wrapper, dip it, and paint dries hard in the heel where you cannot wash it out. The brush is dead in a week. Before you ever dip it, you wet the brush, water for latex, thinner for oil, and shake it nearly dry. The bristles are damp, so paint cannot climb into the base of them. It loads better and washes out in half the time. Damp, not wet. A dripping brush will thin your first strokes. For the man who saved for a good brush, this habit was the difference between a week and 30 years. The Providence painter conditioned every brush he owned before it ever touched a can. Not a brush that wears out, a brush you prepare. Number 15, loading the brush. You jam the brush to the ferrule, drag it on the rim, and now you have paint in the heel and drips down the handle. Dip only the bottom third of the bristles, then tap each side against the inside of the bucket. Do not wipe. Tapping knocks off what would drip and leaves the brush full. Wiping strips it, so you carry nothing and go back 4 times as often. Tap, never wipe. A wiped brush is an empty brush. For the man who thought he was slow, this doubled his speed because he carried twice the paint per trip. Every apprentice in the Brotherhood of Painters learned it his first week, and almost no homeowner has heard it. Not a brush you scrape, a brush you tap. Stop the count for a moment and look at what you are actually paying for. Interior painting is the most labor-heavy trade in residential construction, and it is not close. On any professional quote, labor is 70 to 85% of the number, and the paint can be as little as a fifth of it. A standard bedroom costs about $200 in materials if you do it yourself. Hiring it out runs $800 to $1,200. You are not paying for paint. You are paying for the 4 days, and here is the quiet problem with that. A contractor is paid to finish. Prep is the part nobody sees, nobody photographs, and nobody thanks him for, and every hour he spends washing your walls is an hour off his margin. The good ones do it anyway. The bid always rewards the ones who do not. You are the only person who will ever stand in that room in 10 years. You are the only one with any reason to do it right. And one honest word about the trade he learned: the paint he mixed himself was white lead, and it poisoned painters for centuries, a disease so common it had its own name. The government ended lead paint for homes in 1978, and thank God. If your house predates that year, assume the old paint has lead in it, and never dry sand it. Test first. The craft is worth keeping. The lead is not.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 14. Deglossing before you paint. You paint fresh color over a glossy old door, and in 2 months it peels off in sheets. Paint does not stick to shine. It needs a tooth to grab. So you scuff the whole surface dull with fine sandpaper, or wipe it with a deglossing liquid. Then you wipe the dust off and paint. It bonds and it stays. If the house predates 1978, do not sand it dry. That dust is the dangerous part. Wet sand or degloss with liquid instead. For the family whose doors peeled every time, this was the answer nobody gave them. Every painter knows most peeling is a bond that was never made, not paint that fails, a surface too slick to hold it. Number 13. Caulking before the brush. You paint a room beautifully, step back, and every gap between trim and wall is a black line the fresh paint makes louder. Caulk goes on before paint. You run a thin bead into every seam, then wet your finger and tool it smooth in one pass. Paint it over, the trim and the wall become one surface with no shadow line. Cut the tip small, smaller than you think, because a fat bead is worse than no bead. For the man in an old house where nothing was square, $4 of caulk made his work look like a carpenter had been there. It is the biggest reason professional work looks professional. Not a gap you live with, a seam you close. Number 12. Spot priming what needs it. You paint over a water stain or bare filler, it bleeds through or flashes dull, and you chase it with a third coat and a fourth. Primer is not paint. It is glue for the bad spots. You prime every patch, every bare spot, and every stain, and for water or smoke, you use a stain-blocking primer because latex will never cover it. Prime the patch and give it a wider halo than the patch itself. For the man who painted his ceiling 3 times chasing one brown ring, this ended it in one. Painters have used shellac-based blockers for a century, and they stop what no topcoat will. Not a stain you bury, a stain you seal. Number 11. Reading the weather. You paint the porch on a hot afternoon or a damp evening. It dries wrong. It peels within a year, and nobody can tell you why. Paint does not just dry. It cures, and it needs the right temperature and air. You do not paint below about 50 degrees, you do not paint in the damp, and you never paint in direct sun because the skin sets before the body underneath. You follow the shade around the house. Put your hand flat on the siding. If it is hot, move to the other side. For the man with only weekends to work, choosing the right 2 days beat working the wrong 4. A contractor on a deadline paints when the schedule says paint. You can wait for Tuesday, not paint that failed, a day that was wrong for it. Here is the part of his story we have skipped. The Providence painter did not start out able to read a wall by touch. He started at 12, in 1949, carried along to a job by his own father because there was no one at home to watch him. The boy wanted to paint. He wanted the brush, the color, the visible part. His father handed him a bucket of hot water and a scrub brush and told him to wash. He washed and scraped and sanded that house for 6 days and never touched paint. And by the 4th day, he was crying in the yard. His father did not raise his voice and did not do it for him. He kept the boy on the bucket. On the 7th day, he handed him the brush, and the paint went on gliding because the wall was perfect underneath, and the boy understood in 4 strokes what he would spend 40 years proving. His father told him the only piece of the trade that ever really mattered. Anybody can paint, son. Get the wall right. And that, the plainest thing in the whole trade, is still coming. It is number 1. Number 10, sanding between the coats. Your first coat dries rough as sandpaper. You put the second right over it, and the roughness is locked in forever. The first coat raises every bit of grain and grit on the surface. You knock it down with a light pass of fine paper, wipe the dust off with a damp cloth, and put the second coat over glass. 2 minutes a wall. Barely touch it. You are not sanding it off, only knocking the fuzz down. For the family whose walls always looked homemade, this was the invisible step nobody could name. Every painter does it on anything that matters, and no can has ever printed it on the label. Not a wall that feels cheap. Grit you take off between coats. Number 9, cutting in freehand. This is the trick from the top of our story. You tape the whole room for 2 hours, the paint bleeds under the edge anyway, and pulling it takes the finish with it. A painter uses no tape at all. You take an angled sash brush, load it, and set it a 1/4 inch shy of the line. Then you press just enough to fan the bristles out to the line, and pull the brush along it in one motion, moving your whole arm, not your wrist. The line comes out straighter than tape ever was, and it comes out of your hands. Do not aim the tip at the line. Set it short, and let the flecks of the bristles find it. For the man who dreaded the taping alone, this took 2 hours off the job and made the edges better. An hour of practice on a scrapboard buys a skill a painter uses 10,000 times. Not a line you mask, a line you cut. Number 8, keeping the wet edge. You paint one wall in patches, come back to fill in, and the wall has lap marks across it like a map that no second coat hides. Paint blends only into paint still wet, so you work in strips, always rolling back into the edge you just laid, and you never stop mid-wall. You finish the wall, then take your break. Never stop mid-wall, and never go back into a section that has started to set. For the man painting after work with 2 hours of daylight, planning the wall he could finish was the whole strategy. Every lap mark in America is a wet edge somebody lost, not a wall with stripes, an edge you keep alive. Number 7, laying off. You brush it on, it looks fine wet, and it dries covered in ridges you can read across the room. The paint went on but was never smoothed. After you spread it, you make one final pass with an almost dry brush, light as a feather, one direction, the whole length of the surface. That stroke pulls the ridges out and lets it flow flat. No paint on the brush, no pressure, and one direction only. For the man painting the front door, everyone would see. Laying off made it look sprayed instead of brushed. It is the finishing move of the trade, not a brush stroke you hide, a pass that levels it. Number 6, painting a door in order. You start at the top left and work across, and the panels run and the edges lap and it dries a mess. A door has an order and it is not optional. Panels first, all of them, insides and edges. Then the horizontal rails, then the long vertical stiles, top to bottom, one pass each. That order hides every lap and runs every finish stroke the way the grain does. Panels, rails, stiles, always. And catch the runs at the panel corners before they set. For the man whose front door was the first thing anyone saw, this order was the whole job. Every apprentice learned the sequence before he was trusted on a wall. Not a door you cover, a door you work in sequence. Number 5, painting a sash window. You paint a window shut, and next spring you force it and tear the paint off in strips. A sash has its own order and its own rule. You paint the sashes first, then the frame, then the sill last, and leave the window slightly open. Then, before the paint hardens, you break the seal yourself by scoring the line with a knife and working the sash. Score it and move it the same day, or the house will glue itself shut. For a family in a 3-decker with 16 windows, a window that still opened in July was the difference between a livable summer and a miserable one. The Providence painter scored every window he ever painted before he left the job. Not a window painted shut. A seal you break yourself. Number 4, working the room in order and reading the light. You paint the walls, then the ceiling, and find every mistake after the furniture is back and the light hits it sideways. There is an order and there is a light. Ceiling first, because it spatters, then the walls, then the trim last, because trim is where the eye lands. When you think you are done, kill the lights and hold a work light flat against the wall so it rakes across it. Every miss and thin spot jumps out. Look at it that way before the paint dries, not after. For the man who could not afford to do it twice, 10 minutes with a raking light saved a second job. The Providence painter carried a bare bulb on a cord for exactly this, and he checked every wall before he packed up. Not a job you eyeball, a job you rake with light. Number 3, wrapping the brush. You stop for the night, wash the brush 20 minutes, and do it again tomorrow. The brush dies of the washing more than the working. If you are going back to the same paint in the morning, do not wash it. Scrape the loose paint off, wrap the brush tight in foil with no air in it, and lay it flat. It will be as wet in the morning as at quitting time. For a long break, put it in the freezer and thaw it an hour before you start. Wrap it airtight. Air is what sets the paint, not time. For the man doing his house over 4 weekends, it saved a brush he could not afford to replace. Painters did it with a wet rag and a nail long before plastic wrap. Not a brush you wash nightly, a brush you seal. Number 2, cleaning a brush so it lasts 30 years. You rinse a brush until the water runs clear, hang it up, and in a month it is a hard club, and you blame the brush. Rinsing is not cleaning. The paint hiding in the heel, where the bristles meet the metal, is what kills it. You work the soap and water up into that heel with your hands, again and again, until nothing more comes out. Then you spin it dry, comb the bristles straight, and lay it flat in its own wrapper so it dries in its true shape. Get the heel clean, or nothing else matters. For a man who paid a day's wages for a good hog bristle brush, cleaning it right was not thrift. It was how a tool became a lifelong possession. Purdy has been making brushes in Portland since 1925, and Worcester in Ohio since 1851, and both were built on the idea that a brush is a tool, not a supply. The Providence painter was buried with brushes in his kit, older than his children. Not a brush you use up, a brush you keep. Number 1. Everything you do before the lid ever comes off. And it is the thing this whole list has been circling since the first minute. 4 days on that 3-decker, and not one drop of paint on the house. Here is what he was actually doing. He washed every square foot of that building by hand, with hot water and a scrub brush, because paint does not stick to dirt or chalk or grease, and nothing else on this list matters if that step is skipped. He scraped every loose flake back to solid. He sanded the shine off. He filled what was open and caulked what was gapped. He spot-primed every bare place. Only then, on the 5th day, did he open a can, and the painting took 2. That is the whole trade. The paint is the last 10%, and it is the only part anyone can see, and that is exactly why it is the only part anybody learns. He did not get that from a book. He got it at 12, crying on a scrub bucket in a yard, from a father who would not hand him a brush and told him, "Anybody can paint, son, get the wall right. Here is the part worth sitting with. This is the only thing on this whole list that costs nothing at all. Soap, water, a rag, a scraper, a sheet of sandpaper, your own 2 hands, and hours that nobody is going to pay you for. That is the entire secret, and it is why no contractor on a bid will ever spend 4 days on your house, and why you are the only person alive with any reason to." His paint lasted 34 years. Theirs lasted 3. The difference was not talent, and it was not the paint. It was 4 days and a bucket of hot water. Not the hardest thing on this list, the plainest, and the only one that decides everything else. None of it needed a contractor. That was the point, and it is the part the estimate can never say out loud. A man with a scrub brush in 4 days owed nothing to anyone. He washed the wall, and the paint held. He cut his lines by hand, and they were straighter than tape. He cleaned his brush at the heel, and he used the same one for 30 years. Some of what his trade ran on, like the white lead in his bucket, we were right to bury, and no honest man will mourn it. But the craft was never the poison. The craft was the 4 days. That was not taken from us for our safety. It was dropped because it is the one part of the job that cannot be photographed, cannot be billed, and cannot be sold to you in a can. We did not lose the paint. It is better now than anything he ever mixed by hand. What we lost was smaller than any of it, and a father said it to a crying boy on a scrub bucket in a Providence yard. "Anybody can paint, son. Get the wall right."